There are some inevitable things in life. Death, taxes, as they say. Forgetting your password right after changing it, people misspelling my name despite them being able to see exactly what it's spelled like, and the New York Yankees getting the best of either Minnesota, Cleveland, or Kansas City in October. God, those teams are good for next to nothing when it comes to trying to beat the Yankees. In more recent years, in the more modern day, times have changed a lot in many ways, with one of them being the Yankees' dominance or lack of it. The Yankees used to be a team everyone feared or resented, but since really 2010, the year after the Yankees won what remains their last championship, other franchises have practically made New York their bitch. Most notably Houston, obviously. The Red Sox have taken care of business when it comes to beating the Yankees when it matters most, and dating back to 2004, when they won their first championship in 86 years, the Red Sox are 3-0 in postseason series against the Yankees. The Astros are 4-0 since 2015, 3 of those series being the ALCS. Those have been the main franchises behind New York's fate in October over the last 10 years or so. There's been a couple more, like the Rays took them out in 2020, the Rangers beat them in 2010, so that makes the Yankees 0-5 against the state of Texas in the playoffs. The Tigers beat them twice in a row, 2011 and 2012, and that was after doing the same thing in 2006. But speaking of the division the Tigers reside in, the American League Central, you got the Tigers, and that's it. That's the only team that can beat the Yankees, especially come playoff time. Other than them, best of frickin' luck. I'm convinced at this point that the entire point of the Minnesota Twins' existence is just to get manhandled by the Yankees. No matter what they do, who they sign, how many games they win, their ending is inevitable, and it will come via the hands of the New York Yankees. And ironically, the Twins actually won the very first playoff game the two ever played back in 2003. The Twins won, then they lost again, and then again to lose the series. And then the exact same thing happened the next year in 2004. They win game 1, only to lose again, and 2004 has ended up as the last time the Twins ever beat the Yankees in the playoffs. Sweep after wildcard loss after sweep, the Twins have lost 15 straight postseason games against New York. That's bad. That's really bad. You know what isn't bad though? Baseball video games. As really quick, I wanted to introduce you to a game I found was cool and fitting that you may like called the Pro Baseball Experience, where you can create a player and simulate a professional baseball career surrounded entirely by user-created players. It's basically like MLB The Show's Road to the Show, but with hundreds of other real people rather than against the CPU. You will start by being drafted into the minor leagues and one season later to a major league team. From there, you will make your Major League debut, try to win a World Series, compete with other users for awards, and hopefully have your player enshrined in the Hall of Fame. You can choose whether you would like to be a batter or pitcher, which archetype you would like your player to be, and how you would like to upgrade your player. You can earn training points to upgrade your player by completing a few short tasks each week, which can all be done in under 20 minutes. The Pro Baseball Experience is run by the players and is completely free to play with no pay-to-win elements. The league utilizes the game Out of the Park Baseball to simulate the league, and games are streamed on Twitch 4 days a week. If that sounds fun to you and you'd be interested in becoming a part of their 52nd rookie draft class, check out their forum or join their Discord using the links in the comment section or description below. Now back to the video. But yeah, the Twins, when I think of them, especially up against the Yankees, as Norman Osborn once said,
be ashamed of who you are.
Then you get to the Royals, a team that has beaten the Yankees in a postseason matchup. Back in 1980, Rocky III hadn't even come out yet, and that was after they had lost 3 straight years to them to close out the 70s, a team the Yankees played this year in the first round and had absolutely no problem with. The Royals-Yankees ALDS had to be the most lackluster, boring series of this entire playoffs. I think most would probably agree with that pretty easily. It's a mixture of Bob Costas being Bob Costas and just being such a weird announcer.
Easy to double up. Hit to short. Witt gets the force. Can they turn 2? Yes, they can, and it's just the point we were making. It's not Giancarlo's fault.
Also, the series just never seeming like the Royals had a shot, even though every game was close. The Yankees just felt in control the whole way. Kansas City didn't really hit. Series over. And up next, no matter who won the other ALDS, would be another AL Central team, either Detroit or Cleveland. And like I said, Detroit is the one AL Central team that has New York's number, although it's been more than a decade. And obviously, this is a very different Tigers team. But if you want to go off historical data, that's your best bet to beat the Yankees. But the Guardians ended up coming back to win that series. And I mean, I feel like most of us probably thought this way, but this ALCS was over before it even began. It ended up being a lot more exciting than I anticipated, which we'll get into because there was a lot of madness, but not for a single second did I ever believe the Guardians would actually beat the Yankees. It just wasn't going to happen. Cleveland now has the most playoff matchups from an AL Central team with the Yankees with 7. They beat them the first time in 1997, lost in the 1998 rematch, beat them almost 10 years later in 2007, and then since exactly a decade later, it's been all Yankees. Even though they were down 0-2 in the ALDS that year in 2017, Yankees win both games at home to go back to Cleveland and win the series. 2020, nobody cares about that, but the Yankees swept their 3-game wildcard series in 2 games. 2022, Yankees trail 2-1 after blowing Game 3, but come back to win Game 4 and 5, so that left us with this latest matchup, the 7th between the two now in 2024, and the first ALCS between the two teams since '98. Now, the first 2 games of this series went just about exactly how you'd expect. The Yankees never once were out of control. Juan Soto began the scoring off with a home run. Alex Cobb went on to walk 3 hitters that inning before Guardians reliever Joey Cantillo proceeded to let 2 more runs come home on wild pitches with another walk of his own sprinkled in. Yeah, pretty clear how this is going to go. Carlos Rodon pitches really well, gets the win. Giancarlo Stanton hits a home run to add to their lead late, and you'll soon realize Stanton home runs in this series were as inevitable as anything. Game 2, more of the same. Cleveland, for some reason, forgets how to catch a pop-up and pick up a baseball, and they did make the game close, but as Aaron Judge finally broke out of his postseason slump by hitting his first postseason home run of 2024, the game was in the bag. Yankees win Game 2 and head to Cleveland up 2-0. And it's not that I thought Cleveland wouldn't grab a game or maybe even 2 back at home. I just saw no scenario where they somehow go back to New York and win both games. Even though the games in New York were kind of close, the Guardians just seemed dead and unable to really get that big hit. They just didn't have much energy around them. But they're back home now, things can change, and by the 3rd inning, the Guardians already had their first lead of the entire series. Then they'd add on to that lead and keep pitching well and pitching well before bringing in baseball's #1 closer for the 4-out save. He immediately gets ahead 0-2 on Judge, everything's looking swell, and then complete meltdown. Home run, another home run, failed rally, another run for New York. Now the Guardians are just a strike away from going down 3-0 in the series after most of the game looked so good for themselves until one of the greatest endings to a playoff game ever happened. Like I said, just a strike away from defeat until Lane Thomas drove a ball for a double. Jean-Kenzie Noel comes in a pinch hit and sends the second pitch he sees into the bleachers for a game-tying home run. Crowds going wild. Cleveland keeps New York off the board in the 10th, and then David Fry hits a 2-out bomb of his own to end it. So all of a sudden you had victory in your hands to defeat to suddenly the game is tied, then you win this miraculous game. And this is when I started realizing how much more confident I'd feel in this momentum Cleveland just got if it wasn't Cleveland, like if it was Houston or Boston instead. I know it was such a crazy comeback and gut punch for the Yankees, but I still didn't truly believe the Yankees wouldn't recover from this. And 2 batters in a Game 4, Juan Soto makes it 2-0. Stan eventually goes deep for a 3-run bomb, his 3rd of the series to make it 6-2, and it was just so weird. During Game 4, I had 2 thoughts. 2 feelings. One, I didn't think the Guardians would just get steamrolled. I did kind of expect them to fight back. But my second thought was that a Yankees win was still inevitable either way. I don't know how else to explain it other than this series ended up being a classic case of the Yankees taking advantage of a team that they're not just better than right now, but also historically. Like, can you imagine if this game was in Houston? When the Guardians, after just putting up the most miraculous way to win Game 3, come back yet again to tie this game, putting up a bunch of hits late. The Yankees pitcher fumbles a little grounder that would have been the final out of the 8th, instead going through Anthony Rizzo's balls to tie it. I mean, thank God it was Cleveland, because the Astros totally end up winning this game. And I hope this doesn't sound like I'm hating. I think if anything, the Yankees deserve something like this, finally. To play games like this that look like, even though they may blow it, they're going to end up on top of the end. I think what it shows is that we're in a new era. Who knows if Houston will be as good as they've been for the last 7 years. The other team that's beaten the Yankees, the Red Sox, they haven't been to the playoffs for 3 years now. So the Yankees are getting other teams they've historically handled, teams that historically come up short in the end, like Cleveland, and they're taking care of business like they did in this game. Because despite Cleveland coming back late again, the Yankees immediately score and get to Clase for the 2nd straight night, driving home 2 and then stranding a couple guys on in the bottom of the 9th. And then game 5, yet another close game. Tanner Bibee does his job, the Guardians score 2 runs over the first 5 innings, so things are looking strong, but you just know the Yankees had something up their sleeve. You knew it. And again, just the biggest difference between this year and years past. In years past, maybe they would just not score the rest of a game like this, but this year, facing Cleveland, no, what's going to happen is Stan's going to hit another home run, his 4th of the series, tying the game, a game that would stay tied until the 10th, and then we get into this incredible at-bat. Right before you had Brian Rocchio panicking and trying to turn this double play too quickly, only to drop the ball and get 0 outs. Torres strikes out, but if you want to keep this game tied, here comes big gun number 1 in Juan Soto. You got to get by him. And this at-bat just had vintage Juan Soto all over it. The taking the first pitch inside and looking right back at him. And the only time he didn't do that in this at-bat was the second pitch. A low ball called a strike before proceeding to foul off 4 straight pitches. And Brian Anderson, the announcer, said it perfectly, noting how Soto was just stalking Hunter Gaddis on the mound after each pitch, staring back at him, shaking his head. And that's Juan Soto in general, too. It doesn't matter who's on the mound, how hard you throw, how established you are. This guy is a predator at the plate, stalking his prey on the mound, thinking about how he's going to attack and strike. And he did exactly that to Gaddis here, connecting with the 7th pitch he saw, a high 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and sending it to the deepest part of Progressive Field for a 3-run bomb. 5-2 Yankees, and fittingly, the man who started the scoring in this series with a home run back in Game 1, Juan Soto, ends the scoring with another home run in Game 5, his 3rd of the series, and catching the final out to end the series for good. And this was exactly how it was going to turn out all along. Cleveland showed fight, even the games in New York where they didn't seem to have much energy. Those were still close games, even with the Yankees not trailing one time. And then back in Cleveland, they did everything but take stress off the Yankees. Every single game was a real hassle, but this series ended where it did and when it did for a reason. The Guardians got a game out of it all. They were able to finish on top with one of their rallies, but that was all they were going to get. What this seemed to me was the Yankees being destined to finally go back to the World Series. Will they win it? We'll find out, but it was time to at least get there. Houston's out, Boston's been out. Juan Soto adds another layer of balls to this team. Yeah, the Yankees might have made it more stressful than they hoped, but they were never going to lose this series. They were bound to win it the entire time, so they did exactly that. Let me know your thoughts, and thank you for watching.